Welcome back, San Jose Sharks fans. I'm sure you're already very familiar with me. We've been here many times before because the San Jose Sharks have not been very good for a while. But I will say this before we get into the picks for 2025. I really hope that this is the start of a turning point in the right direction for San Jose because they have added some really interesting and good players in the drafts over the years. And this class is no different. Leading the way at second overall, Michael Misa goes to the San Jose Sharks. This was the right pick, at least for what we know about these players today, and I think there's an argument to be made that he was the number one player available this year. If they had the first overall pick, I probably would have gone Schaefer, but Michael Misa is not a bad consolation prize, and with all of the offensive weapons now that the San Jose Sharks have, there is something here with San Jose that could be very interesting. Michael Misa is a brilliant tactician. He's a really explosive skater, better than you would think. Every stride is really efficient and strong. He builds speed really well. An elite level forechecker as well. Makes great reads of opponents, knows where to be all the time, and he's an epitome of exactly the type of player that I love, where he makes everybody around him better. His impact on the game at both ends of the ice is really good. The only thing about Michael Misa is that he's not the most physical guy in the world. But how many really good offensive players this year do you look at and go, boy, I really love the physicality of this guy who just scored 80 points this year? That list is relatively small, and it's not everybody who scores a lot in the NHL. So I never understood where this thought came from of, well, he doesn't throw hits, so he's not going to work out in the NHL as well as a second overall pick should. No. In my opinion, Misa is a better playmaker, he's a better timed player on the puck and off of it, where the physicality doesn't even need to be there. He's a great example of not really needing to play physical because he makes up for it everywhere else. To me, this was a no-brainer. At second overall, I think they've got what could be one of the best second-line centers in the league if Celebrini is your number one, and that's a great 1-2 punch to have up the middle. I'm not going to complain at all. At 30th overall, San Jose went in an interesting direction, taking Joshua Ravensburg. Ravensburg is a goaltender that I saw quite a bit this year because the hype around him was crazy. I didn't see the guy that everybody said there was there. I felt that he was out of his net a little too much. He was a very wild goaltender in the net sometimes, flying out of the crease on freezes, pucks getting through him where I just didn't feel like they should, or at least relative to the other goaltenders I watched in this year's draft. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, maybe he's actually incredible. He did have some good numbers, and you look at the deeper analytics at even strength, it wasn't really that much far ahead of some goaltenders that went much later than him. Already got Yaroslav Askarov, who is just pounding on the door of the NHL. I would have gone in a different direction here than drafting a goalie if I was San Jose, but they took the guy everybody seems to like, and if it works, great. At 33rd overall, they drafted Hao Wong. I have seen this guy a lot this year. I remember watching him at the OJHL level and going, wow, this is an interesting player. I don't think there's been a player like Hao Wong in the years I've done this at all. He really picked up high-level hockey very recently. He is very raw with regards to actually playing hockey from what I've seen. But the fundamental talent there is really good. When he tells you his story of how he got into hockey, it makes a ton of sense when you look at how he plays. A lot of it seems to be, I love to just be on the rink and skate really well and play around, because that's the kind of thing that he does extremely well while also being 6'7". This is one of the best examples in this year's draft class of he's not there now, but in 5 years, he could be awesome, and I can't disagree with that. Wong is a player that I did not have ranked this high. I am a little bit surprised that he went this early, but with San Jose, they're a team that I think can take a bit of risks here because they've drafted so much over the years that if they get something that they really believe has high upside in Hao Wong, which I think he does have, I get it. I wouldn't have done it. I think there's a really long way to go for him. I see the pathway, it's an intriguing pick, and he's a solid player. And it's a great story as well. The interesting thing, and I like to do this sometimes, is they draft Cole McKini at 53rd, and if you had flipped those two things around, that would seem perfectly logical to me. That's why I'm not super critical of these decisions as well. McKini is a really intriguing player. I had him ranked at the tail end of my first round. I think he has the physical edge and the resilience and the passing ability to work out as a bottom six NHL player. He absorbs pressure really well. He doesn't shy away from contact. Honestly, I think there's a lot of similarities from Cole McKini to a guy like Brady Martin. I'm not saying those two are equivalent, but I don't think the step down from Martin to McKini is that huge. They play a similar style of game. And I think McKinney's ceiling could be somewhat comparable to a guy like Martin's. The strength on his feet is an asset. The intelligence on and off the puck is definitely an asset, but the biggest thing for me is his ability to handle pressure. And I think that over time he could develop into just a solid center that can play down your lineup. If your center depth looks like Celebrini, Misa, with McKini on the fourth line, I think you've got a pretty good group to build around. At 95th overall, they drafted Teddy Mutrin. This is a player that I saw a few times with the NTDP, and he just never really moved the needle for me, but I can see why a team like this would draft him, because they have drafted these physical, hit first, ask questions later type players with a little bit of offensive tools to them in the past, and Mutrin is one of those, I think. I noted him at the under-18s a number of times for throwing some of the more impressive hits out of anybody in the tournament. Now, I haven't seen enough of him this season to know if that's really part of his game, but those are the things that have stuck out whenever I have seen him. So at 95th overall, if you have a guy that you can round out your lineup with, or he plays down your lineup and is a everyday fourth liner, then that's a great pick at 95. Do I think he gets there? I'm not totally sold. At 115th, they drafted Ilyas Magomed Sultanov. Now, not only is this one of the best names in the whole draft, it's an interesting pick. Magomed Sultanov is one of these guys who I think skates pretty well. He's got some size. There's a bit of skill to his game as well. He's defensively pretty well rounded. I just didn't see an NHL player there, but the lucky part for San Jose is they have lots and lots of runway with a guy like him. When it came to Russian defensemen this year, the guys that I liked were already gone at this point. Guys like Limatov, guys like Bausov, if you want that more defensive player, but Magomed Sultanov is a decent bet. At 124th, they drafted Zack Sharp, and we've seen picks like this in this year's draft before where it just feels like they had such a good season that they deserved to be drafted. Now, Zack Sharp wasn't the most productive player in the NCAA this year, but he did win a national championship in pretty impressive fashion with Western Michigan. I can see why a team would have drafted this guy. He gets up and down the ice pretty well. He's got a pretty good shot. He has a pretty decent nose for playmaking and just playing in the offensive zone decently well. He's got a bit of a physical side to him as well that wasn't incredible, but notable. Do I think he's an NHL player? I'm not totally sure, but you at least have a quicker runway of development here. He's going to be in the AHL quicker than a lot of other players. I can see why San Jose would prioritize guys like that at this point in their development. Did show some impressive stuff in the video I saw since the draft, and at 124th, there were probably some other guys that are younger I would have gone with. An interesting pickup, especially if he's the 7th guy off your board. At 150th, they drafted Max Heisey. He wasn't the most productive guy, and he's a re-entry in the BCHL. With Heisey, he's got some size. He does have a physical edge as well, which I picked up in the video I saw since the draft. And I do see a few moments of skill and some really nice finishing ability out of Heisey that I think could combine into something interesting. At this point in the draft, you take who you like. And if you like Max Heisey, I see why. And I feel like there were better players available out there, especially those that went undrafted, that have a bit of a better value proposition. But if you end up with a fourth line guy who can throw hits and finish plays here and there and go to the net, yeah, Heisey's a decent one. But then they made up for everything, because at 210th overall, they drafted one of my favorite players to watch in this year's draft in Richard Galant. Galant is tiny, a 5'8" winger, but I cannot tell you how many times I watched this team play this season, and I can't tell you how many times I was drawn to Galant. This kid plays his heart out every single shift, and I'm thrilled someone else recognized it and drafted him at some point. I expected him to go undrafted. We talked about a guy like Alex Weirmeyer or Charlie Serrato in previous reports. I saw a similar trajectory for Galant where he grows a little bit from here, stays productive, goes to college, has a really good time, and then gets some sort of NHL attention. So for San Jose to jump the queue on that and take a gamble on him at this point, mwah, beautiful. This kid is great. Really high skill, really high energy, really good playmaker, but much more of a goal scorer more than anything. Lethal shot. He goes to the net as well. This is a guy who plays like he's bigger than he is, and I always have a lot of respect for players like that. I really, really love this pickup at 210. I was really happy to see him get picked. It was a nice bet to make and one I absolutely would have gotten behind, especially if he interviewed really well with the team. So all in all, I think San Jose had a great weekend. Obviously, Michael Misa automatically puts them in the one category. He could turn out to be the most productive player that comes out of this draft class. Extremely smart, extremely creative, unbelievably talented fundamentally. If Joshua Ravensburg turns out to be your number 1 or number 1B goaltender one day, that's a great pickup as well. It is difficult to find goaltenders that can consistently drive results these days, so if he is that could be a really good pickup. Hao Wong at 33 is an upside swing, and it is a swing for the fences. There were a lot of players at this point where I would have really wanted them instead of Wong, but there is a project here, there is a development case to be made for him, and maybe after a few years in college, he turns out to be a really good, rangy, offensive-leaning defenseman with some defensive tools as well. McKini, though, I think is a really solid pickup where they got him. Solid, fundamental baseline. I can see him being an NHL player one day. It might take some time, but I could see it. Guys like Mutrin and Magomed Sultanov and Sharp and Heisey, not guys I had on my list, but I see the logic behind some of these picks. Maybe not the best value proposition for a lot of these guys, but time will tell. Richard Galant at the end, I just love it. I think that the upside on Galant, if things go really right, he might be another one of those guys that goes under the category of when you look historically, NHL teams have a lot more success in the 7th round than in rounds like 4, 5, and 6. A lot of that comes down to teams taking risks on smaller players more often late in the draft. I've loved him every time I've seen him. I think that at 210, he is one of the most fun players that I would have considered in that range. Really impressive player. Love how he plays. He's a long shot, but I could see a path forward. So San Jose, I think, did really well. They added to a really strong group of players they've drafted over the years. I'm really excited for what the future holds for this group. I really hope they start to turn a corner because they are a fun team to watch, even if they aren't winning a whole lot right now. All the more power to them, and I think they added some guys that will be a really strong part of that organization in the next few years. A quick note before we finish today's video, I just wanted to mention, we are at 9,600 subscribers, give or take. Getting to 10,000 before next season would mean the world to me. So if you are not subscribed, which about half of our viewers aren't, I would suggest subscribing because I'm biased, but we have some good content coming, and our live shows twice a week are really fun. We get to talk about hockey, we talk about whatever else you want, we can talk about the time I ate an onion, we can talk about the future of the sport, we can talk about the current state of the NHL, and we just try to have some fun a couple times a week, and it's always great to see people come by. Thanks to everybody who already is subscribed. Let's get to 10K. That's a nice little project for us to do now. And with that, we're going to call it. If you liked the video, definitely like and subscribe. If you really liked it, definitely consider a subscription over at Scouching.ca, where you can get access to all kinds of fun data tools and our Discord server and plenty of other fun stuff that you're just not going to find anywhere else on the internet. So check that out at Scouching.ca. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.